So, when you don't know how to do something, how to fix something, or how something works, what do? Ask a teacher? Ask your parents? Ask your friends? Ask someone you really know and trust? No! You go to the internet and ask some randos. But I'm not talking about creeps here, I hope. No, I mean the people of the internet! You know, those people who make how-to videos. Because chances are, if you're trying to figure out something, someone on the internet has already figured it out for you. Things like, how do I unsend a text? No. How do I do a winged eyeliner? How do I get rid of the zit by Friday night? How do I get out of gym class? How do I screen cap Snapchat without getting caught? They'll never know. But then there are things in life that don't have an easy fix, that don't have a simple solution, that don't have a how-to video. Things like what to do when you have problems with family, or when it seems like you have no control in your life, or what to do when someone has done something to you. I mean, clearly, they gotta go. The truth is, there's a lot of life that doesn't have a solution you can just find online. So how do you know what to do when you don't know what to do?
What's up, guys? How many of you overuse emojis when you text? I get it. We all have that friend who somehow feels like no text is complete without like 6 emojis. Or maybe you've moved on to GIFs and now you only send 2-second clips of a show instead of actually communicating. When it comes to text, I get it. Too much is too much. But at the same time, I've got to be honest. Emojis and GIFs have helped me out a bunch of times. And here's what I mean. Laughing tear face. I use this one all the time. When my friends and I are sending each other dumb gifts, a lot of laughing tear faces are sent in response. They're also sent when I have no idea what to say. Anybody else do that? Or green face. Maybe if you're overly sensitive to smell, or you have to eat the cafeteria food again, or you walk into a public restroom, some smells are just too gross for words. The sad face with a tear streaming down it. Whether I'm sad about something that's for real heavy, or I forgot it was Sunday and I tried to go to Chick-fil-A, that's the beauty of emojis. They help us talk about how we feel without having to use words. There are a few emojis that I don't use often, but when I do, they say a lot. And these set the stage for what we're going to talk about today. It's these emojis. Face with no mouth. Face with open mouth. Face with an open mouth and raised eyebrow. We've all had these situations where we're like, I have no words for this. We're shocked. I like the first one the best, the face without a mouth, because it represents those moments when you simply don't have words to say. It's when we hear something or something happens that we can't make sense of. I'd venture to say that most of the time, these shock emojis are sent along with a text that reports something happening that was shocking in a bad way. Something that catches us off guard and hits us out of nowhere. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Have you ever experienced anything in your life like that? Something that simply wrecked your world, caught you off guard, made your life feel uncertain, or caused you a lot of hurt. Maybe you felt this way when you got the news your parents were splitting up, even though you had no idea things were that bad. Maybe a friend had something mean to say about you, and he or she accidentally sent that text to you, and you immediately knew they meant to send it to someone else. Maybe you felt this way when your mom or dad told you you were going to have to move because of a job change. Maybe you felt this way when you experienced an injury at the beginning of your sports season. Maybe you got dumped. Unfortunately, this list could go on for a long time with examples of time when your world got wrecked by some shocking news or circumstance. If you haven't experienced it yet, there will be a time in your life when this happens. The thing about these shocking, painful moments is that they often hit us out of nowhere. And because of that, it's difficult for us to know how they'll make us feel. And because of that, it's difficult for us to know how we'll respond. Sometimes we surprise ourselves by how well we handle it. We think, wow, I figured news like this would have wrecked me, but I'm actually doing okay with it. Sometimes we surprise ourselves by how much it tears us apart. We think, I don't even know why I'm so upset about this, but I'm a mess. Sometimes we feel closer to God when stuff wrecks us, but other times we wonder where God is at all. Because we're all wired differently, we experience hurt differently. But that doesn't change the fact that hurt hurts. And when life hurts, we all find ourselves wondering what to do next. That's why we're doing this series, What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. Because we all encounter those no word emoji moments. And so did Joseph. We began the series by talking about him in the last video, and this time his story continues in a way that can only be described as... Joseph is one of the most famous people in the Old Testament. Joseph had some family drama he definitely played a part in creating. He was his dad's favorite child and therefore given some special treatment compared to his other brothers. On top of that, he had a dream that his brothers and even his parents bowed down to him out of respect and honor. And because Joseph seemed to have a hard time picking up on social cues, he shared it with his family. You can imagine how well that went over. His brothers were not okay with him being dad's favorite. And his brothers were not okay with him sharing his dreams of rolling over them one day. So how did they respond? Check this out. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Well, that escalated quickly. Here comes the dreamer, they said to each other. Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of those cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams. Despite his anger towards Joseph, one of the brothers actually had a conscience in the moment. When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. Let's not take his life, he said. Don't shed any blood. Throw him into the cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him. Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. Thank goodness for Reuben. He convinced his brothers to throw Joseph into a well instead of going homicidal on him. He even planned on coming back to rescue Joseph later. The brothers listened to Reuben, and when Joseph approached, they ripped off the special coat his father had given him and they threw him into the well. If Joseph had a phone, this is when he would probably text his best friend, "When your brothers tear up your jacket and throw you in a well." But they're still not done with him. They noticed a caravan of traders approaching. Judah, another one of Joseph's many brothers, suggested they sell Joseph to these traders. After all, selling Joseph to a group of people who would most likely make him a slave is much better than murdering him, right? So that's exactly what they do. And they dip Joseph's coat in the blood of a wild animal, take it to their father, and tell him Joseph was likely attacked and killed by animals. What a cover story. They took the ornate robe back to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe." The last line tells us everything we need to know about the situation. The brothers obviously knew that the coat belonged to Joseph. They brought it up to let their dad know they noticed the way he favored Joseph. They were mad about it. They didn't call it Joseph's robe or our brother's robe. They said your son's robe. Insert text number 2. Good news. Out of the well. Bad news. They sold me. Like actually sold. I'm being a bit lighthearted, but there was nothing lighthearted about this situation. We simply cannot imagine the fear, despair, uncertainty, anger, and hurt that he felt. Betrayed by his own flesh and blood, sold into a real slavery by the brothers he grew up with. The message being sent was loud and clear. We're all better off without you. I mean, what would you even do? How would you get yourself unsold? This was clearly a what to do when you don't know what to do moment. Our stories are different than Joseph's, but we will all experience pain of some kind. We'll all have scary, painful, or dangerous moments that catch us off guard. We'll all have moments when life doesn't make sense and we don't have the words to process what's happening. Unfortunately for Joseph, he had more shocking moments in his future. And we'll look at some of those in the next few videos. But I want to highlight 5 powerful words that show up in the historical account of his life. While they didn't keep him from getting thrown into a pit and they didn't keep him from getting sold, these 5 words literally made all the difference and helped Joseph maybe more than anything else. The Lord was with Joseph. Joseph didn't have a lot going for him in the pit and even afterwards, but when Joseph was in despair and wondering how life would turn out, he could rely on a single truth: God was with him. This truth didn't change the reality of Joseph's situation, but it was better than being alone. This truth didn't mean that Joseph could see where the story was going, but he can know that he wasn't entirely dependent on himself to get out of this situation. The truth didn't mean that Joseph could easily deal with the things that had happened to him. It didn't mean that he had a reason or explanation for the pain in his life, but he didn't have to figure out things all by himself. The same is true for you. When there's nothing you can do, God is with you. When life hands you shocking news and you don't know what to do, God is with you. Truthfully, we hear that all the time. So often that the words lose their meaning. We don't feel them. But think about it for a second. God is with you. Not in some abstract way, but he is literally present near you, next to you, when you feel alone. When you and I can truly understand and embrace this, it changes things. Our circumstances may not change. After all, Joseph wasn't immediately returned to his family, but it changes our perspective on our situation. And maybe more than anything, it gives us hope that we can keep going even when it feels like we can't. Knowing that God is with us may not change our circumstances, but it might just change us. It might just give us enough hope to keep going, even in the midst of our hopeless circumstances. It's easy to give into the hurt we've experienced. It's easy to let fear overwhelm us or anger consume us. We have a lot of reasons to let difficult and sometimes unfair situations get the last word. But when we know that God is with us, the uncertainty of life doesn't get the last word. God does. But what does that look like for us? There are no formulas or easy answers for getting through hard times. But here are some things to do in the meantime. First, be real. Feel your feelings. Not everyone will experience incredible luck in life, but everyone will go through tough times and pain. All throughout the Bible, people went through difficulties, and there are many accounts of them being real and honest with God about their struggles. There are no cliches to making the hard times go away, and our job isn't to just suck it up and act like everything is okay. If we believe that God is with us, then we should know that God is more than okay with our honest questions, doubts, and fears. Second, remind yourself and each other that God is with you. Here's a spoiler alert. Things eventually work out for Joseph, but we know that because we can read the whole story in the Bible. But when Joseph was in it, he didn't know how it would turn out. There were no spoiler alerts for him. All he could do is face another day wondering how things would turn out. But he held on to one thing, that God was with him. In moments when life is the toughest, that's when this reminder is the most important. God is with you, and your story isn't over. Our life will be full of moments when we don't know what to do about our pain. I want you to know that that's exactly why church and small groups are a thing. We'll want to insert shocked face emoji a lot of times. In those moments, nobody wants to be alone. And it's important to know that when you don't know what to do, God is with you. And so are your youth leaders. It will give you hope when things feel hopeless. It won't make the difficult circumstances go away, but you will have something to count on. You will know that you are not alone.